The lockdowns are back, baby. If you've been following the news, then you've heard me talk about it over and over again. Yep, the lockdowns are coming back in full force, and New York City just announced they're going to be shutting down their school system. Bravo, Cuomo. Man, that dude has really run that state into the ground, and de Blasio just lit New York City on fire. And these are the people we're supposed to be looking up to. Cuomo talking about how he's the one who knows how to solve this problem, and we got to listen to what he has to say. He put sick people in nursing homes and killed a bunch of old people. And now New York is falling into disrepair. I mean, disrepair is putting it lightly, to be honest. It's a ghost town. I mean, I hear these stories from people. You constantly hear the left saying, no, New York's fine. That's not the videos I've seen. People talking about going to Times Square, just ghost town, nothing there. Businesses all shuttered. What's left? The city is in dire straits. And it's the fault of Bill de Blasio and Cuomo, Democrats. Now, that's the news. Check it out. New York City to close public schools as virus cases rise. In a big setback for the city's recovery, the school's chancellor, Richard Carranza, said the nation's largest district would return to all remote learning. I'm sure the people who live in New York are excited about this. One of the issues with school is that parents use it as effectively as a daycare. Kind of a problem, in my opinion, but I understand why parents rely on these schools. They can go work while their kid is in school being taught, whatever. I'm not a big fan of the system, not at all. But I understand why parents need it. Now, here's the best part, what you've been waiting for. CNN baselessly claims Republicans are at fault for coronavirus spike. Oh, heavens. I was under the impression when you look at the charts that New York City was the worst hotspot potentially in the world, or it was at one point. Yeah, that's not a Republican place last time I checked. The Examiner says it's long been taken for granted that the national media helped politicize the pandemic in order to help Joe Biden get elected. But every now and again, some liberal on cable news will say something so stunning in its partisan stupidity that it actually takes your breath away. A perfect example is that ironically named reality check segment hosted by CNN's John Avlon. Avlon on Wednesday pushed the ridiculous notion that cases of coronavirus infections are spiking in the U.S. thanks to Republican governors who followed President Trump's lead in pushing to reopen the economy. Quote, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, began Avlon, with a dramatic flair fit for a middle school play, but not their own facts. Yes, Avlon is actually paid to blurt out stale lines like this. He went on to say that cases are up across the country, but the governors who backed the Trump party lines are the ones really reaping the whirlwind. Avlon was also sure to note, with grave sincerity, that of the top 15 states with the highest rates of new infections, 13 are deep in Donald Trump's base. Avlon didn't explain why the other two states, Wisconsin and Illinois, escape his indignation or what they did wrong. Perhaps the coronavirus wears a mask in those places, so that's at least doing its part. With a straight face, Avlon declared that this is what happens when ideology elbows out science. Or maybe it's what happens when a highly contagious airborne virus continues its spread. By the way, the pandemic raged for 11 months before the numbers lined up for Avlon to figure out a plausible way to blame Republicans. Where was he when New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut were suffering the worst of it? Where were they when Cuomo put sick people in nursing homes, killing the elderly? Oh, I remember. Chris Cuomo, whose brother's with the governor, pulled out a giant oversized novelty Q-tip and was like, my brother, the governor, has got a big nose. That's what they did. Bravo. Excellent. A+ news. And they defended it saying, hey, America needs a little levity right now. Your city was aflame. Your state, for the most part, chaos. And they just sat back and waited. Now they can say, aha, Republicans, your fault. Perhaps. But perhaps the real problem is that Democrats caused all of this in the first place. You see, Donald Trump in January launched the task force, suspended travel, with exception, for some people to and from China. It was like American citizens were coming back. What are you going to do? Ban them from coming back home? And what happened with the Democrat cities? It was the Democrat cities where chaos erupted. Now, to be fair, you can say, yes, Tim, but New York is very, very dense, so it spread rapidly. Sure, that's right. But it was also in this city where the Democrats were like, come on down to Chinatown and have a good time and ignore the racist Donald Trump. We're going to show people not to be xenophobic. And then the city became a massive hotspot. Now, I'm not going to blame de Blasio or Cuomo on a natural disaster, a pandemic. But if they're going to come out and say it's the Republicans' fault, Republicans' fault, all of this is happening, when for the most part, first, Republicans live in places where there's like people far away. So no. If a Republican says they don't want to wear a mask when there's like a statewide mandate, it's like, well, do they live in the middle of nowhere? Because then I can kind of understand that. But I do think, at least in my opinion, if I'm going to Walmart, if I'm going to Target or Shop and Save or, whatever store is allowed to be open at this point, I got no problem wearing a mask. It's further away. I'll go there. I'll put on a mask. It's for 15, 20 minutes. Not the end of the world for me. Some people just get really angry, don't want to do it. Now, I can certainly say, people don't understand wearing a mask is so you don't spit when you talk. And then so wearing a mask does help. And if people don't want to wear it, well, then, yeah, sure, we'll throw a little shade their way if the virus keeps spreading in certain areas. But guess what? It's spreading in Democrat cities, not Republican. And maybe there are Republicans in New York who are not wearing their masks. I have to imagine many of them would probably just wear their masks because Republicans in New York are probably fairly moderate for the most part. No, the reality is it started in Democrat cities when people like Cuomo had ample warning. They blamed Donald Trump. Trump should have done something about this. Trump should have done something about Seattle and New York. Those are Democrat cities. Sure, Trump did stuff, but it was up to the governors and local politicians to deal with this. And then when they screwed up, they said, well, we blame Trump. Cuomo, you're the governor. It's your state. De Blasio, you're the mayor. It's your city. There's no excuse for this. You can't blame Trump. The buck stops with you. It's like you walk into a building and there's a janitor who didn't clean up a mess. And then he goes, well, I blame the building owner. It's like, sure, the building owner does have the capacity to intervene and do something up the garbage, but you're the janitor. Better yet, it would be like if there was an apartment complex and the dude who lived in the apartment where it's all trashed and smells like garbage was like, well, I blame the landlord. It's like, dude, that's your mess. Like, sure, you can actually take it up with the landlord if it smells bad, it's affecting other people, and he can intervene. He should. But if the tenant, you're the person there. First and foremost, I would blame de Blasio before blaming Cuomo. And I would blame Cuomo before blaming Trump. And we have seen some little bumps appear in the Sun Belt and other Republican states, but it's not been nearly as bad. And I know I can already hear the left saying, yeah, but Tim, big cities, it's not their fault. Sure. And there were and big cities saw the worst of it. That's fair. Then we can just at least say it's a population density issue, not a Republican issue. But of course, CNN had to go there, didn't they? Here's what they say. It's convenient for Avalon to skip over the first 10 months when it was solidly blue states that held the distinct honor of having the highest COVID-19 related death rate. Wait, let me double check that. My mistake. That's still the case today. Yup. The top 3 states are New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts. Among the top 15, just to use Avalon's own random number, only 5 went to Trump in the 2020 election. This excludes D.C., a Democrat city, which, if were counted as a state, would currently have the 9th highest death rate in the country. Why is the spread of the virus a matter of partisanship now and not then? Because Avalon has a political point to make. Avalon's corny reality check segment is what happens when ideology elbows out science. Aha! Bravo, good sir. Eddie, is it scary or scary? Commentary writer. Good zinger at the end. Right now, the lockdowns are getting worse, and it's political. They're blaming Republicans. They're calling everyone far right. And I'll tell you what is really, the way I'm starting to see it. What does it mean to be right wing? Right wing basically means you oppose the establishment. That's it. Because you could be a literal socialist who opposes wokeness, and that classifies you as right wing nowadays. Okay, to be fair, I guess they could call you like dirtbag left or something. It depends on what you think is the biggest issue. If you focus predominantly on issues of social, Medicare for all and things like that, and say we must figure out a way to do this, then they'll call you left. If you focus specifically on wokeness, they'll call you right. So if like 60% of the time you're talking about, Medicare for all, or 40% of the time you're talking about wokeness, then you're left. Invert it and you're right. Because I'll tell you this, I'm absolutely in favor of Medicare for all, 100%. But they'll never call me left wing, will they? Conservatives certainly will. I always clarify this, though, because I try to be reasonable. I don't know how we would implement Medicare for all, especially with a country this big. I'm for it, though, 100%. Would prefer a system where everybody is getting access to some degree. The problem, I actually, and I'll put it this way, Medicare for all plus private supplemental for those who can afford it, the best of both worlds. I just don't know if it's possible. But if given the opportunity, someone said, I would like to, map out a plan to get there, I'd be like, for sure. But that's the name of the game. You're right. Depending on what your focus is, you're left otherwise. I think right now what we're seeing is that there's an establishment and the left just blindly supports it for the most part. The establishment likes the wokeness. And for some reason, you'll get leftists supporting Joe Biden, even though they campaigned against him forever. 10 years of Occupy Wall Street rhetoric. And then all of a sudden, well, I should say 5 years. And then it changed when Donald Trump came in. Why? Because Trump actually supported some of the complaints that Occupy Wall Street had. Occupy Wall Street didn't like these free trade agreements. Now, all of a sudden, Trump opposes it. What do we do? It was very convenient for the establishment to get all of these Occupy people to just one day agree and support the absurdity. But that's what you can expect from the partisan likes of CNN or otherwise. For everybody else, I hope you're paying attention because the lockdowns are going to get worse. They're shutting down the schools. I hope you're getting ready for this because Biden says it's going to get bad. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.